If you haven't watched all of Volume 4 of RWBY, go do that before watching this review, otherwise I'll just end up spoiling things for you. Volume 4, Episode 4. Family. What happens? Oscar gets jump-scared by Ozpin's voice, Yang has a crazy nightmare about Adam and wakes up to find Professors Port and Oobleck visiting Tai. A surprisingly awkward conversation ensues until Tai manages to get out some inspiring words for Yang. Tai then mentions to the teachers that he's not looking for RWBY so he can take care of Yang. We then jump to Ranger, who is under the watchful eye of Crow. Ranger and Crow make it to Higanbana, where the kids find an inn and Crow keeps watch from a nearby bar, until he gets told that there's someone there who wants to speak with him. Crow talks with Raven about vague shit for 4 minutes until Raven leaves, and the episode ends with Yang putting her new robo-arm on. I have to be honest, when I first saw this episode, I was bummed that it established Oscar as a reoccurring character. I couldn't help but think, really? Another important character for us to eventually learn about? We already have RWBY, Weiss, Blake, Yang, Jean, Ren, Nora, Cinder, Salem, Tyrion, Hazel, Watts, Adam, Sun, Crow, and Ironwood to learn about and watch develop. That's not even including important family members like Tai and Winter, or other fan favorites that seem to have been forgotten, like Team Coffee and the rest of Team Sun. And now they want to throw Oscar into the mix? They already have a veritable rainbow of characters to work with, and they decide to make another main character? It becomes clear later that Oscar's going to be an important part of this story, but we already have 4 main characters! Why keep adding characters when you haven't even developed the ones you already have? It took 3 volumes for Yang to do anything, 4 just to get some backstory for Ren and Nora. RWBY hasn't grown as a character since she talked to Ozpin back in Volume 1. Every character arc is stretched thin already to accommodate for the humongous cast, and worst of all, I could not get myself to care about Oscar. Throughout the entire volume, I wanted a reason to be interested in him, tried to get invested in his character, but he's done nothing. Having Ozpin in his head isn't enough to get me to like the character, so I hope I find a reason to care about Oscar in Volume 5. Yang's nightmare was striking. You really get to feel the fear and helplessness she's going through with the weird screaming audio and a warped fisheye lens to give the viewer the feeling of being sick. It's all real memorable, and another example of the super effective silent scenes that the RWBY crew has gotten good at. The guys' conversation is nice and fun. Until Yang joined. It became so uncomfortable when she showed up. Tai's awkward protectiveness and the fight between him and Yang is hard to sit through. I'm right there with Port and Oobleck, wishing the tension would go back down. A lot of people were real pissed at Tai for his jab about losing brain cells along with her arm. So many comments went off about him being abusive, but Yang's response makes it clear that that's just how they talk to each other. Yang's not hurt by his comment, and I think it's nice to see them so chill with each other. The rest of the conversation is pretty by-the-book inspiring. It was important for Yang's story, sure, but it was also forgettable. Most of the conversation was, honestly. With the exception of Tai's remark about brain cells and such, the conversation is 4 minutes of fluff. Fluff that's too awkward to want to sit through again and not funny enough to counteract the awkwardness. The characters in the scene keep howling with laughter, but really nothing they say is that funny. Just because the characters are laughing doesn't guarantee the audience will be too. Tai and the professors act as if they've hung out before. Like this isn't the first time they've ever traveled to Patch to chat with Tai. You'd think that Yang and RWBY would have recognized them then. Maybe they just reconnected after Tai went to a parent-teacher conference or something. The characters talk about Lux so much this episode, it's a wonder no one figured out Crow's semblance early. At the time I first watched this episode I hadn't noticed it, but now I can see the hints scattered all over the script. I love the fact that RWBY has trouble pronouncing the more Eastern-sounding names like Higanbana. It's just a cute character quirk that gives a bit of depth to her. Crow's semblance may be bad luck, but it looks like he's gonna get lucky tonight. The Bronwyn twins' conversation is one of my least favorite moments of this volume. It's 4 minutes of the two talking around information in a clunky form of the pronoun game. The writers are so preoccupied with giving the viewers as little information as possible that they forget to write a believable conversation. The characters aren't talking, they're spewing vague nothings that are meant to intrigue the viewer. The only thing of worth from the encounter is that we learn that the twins are from a tribe and that Raven is the leader of said tribe. The entire rest of the conversation is useless. There aren't hints to let the audience try to figure out what they're talking about, or solid statements that lead to a revolutionary "that's what they meant" moment. It's just nothing, a complete lack of worth or interest. I got bored during my first watch of this conversation because I wasn't given anything worth listening to. Even now that we know about the relics, the conversation offers no new ideas or motives to the audience on a rewatch. It's 3.5 minutes of wasted animation effort. The writers are gonna have to learn that they can't just keep bringing up mysteries and secrets without giving us any answers. This was a perfect opportunity to do that, but the opportunity was squandered on a clumsy and unsuccessful attempt of building intrigue. Well, there is one good thing about the conversation. We get to see Raven's revamped design. She really feels like her own character now, as opposed to simply being an alternate color palette of Yang. Why does Crow's face look so weird here? Like, I get what they're going for, and it would work on a 2D picture, but it just looks goofy on a 3D model. Can you make this a double? Of course Ty's got sunflowers, the teddy bear cinnamon roll! You know, I was actually really surprised that Yang put the arm on so quickly. I had figured that we would be spending most of the volume with her learning to live without an arm, and dealing with the emotional problems that go with that. But instead, in the first scene she's in, she's given a new arm, and in the second episode she's in, she puts it on. That being said, I wasn't necessarily disappointed at how quickly we got here. It'd be much more interesting to watch her learn to live with a new arm than to learn to live without one. However, we'll talk more about that at a later date. And so, that was Family. This episode is boring. The bulk of the episode are two different conversations that are either too awkward or too vague to enjoy. The writing just really fell flat. Ty's trite attempt at inspiration could be seen from a mile away. The twins' floundering around some dialogue meant to do nothing but pique our interest, but only succeeds in alienating the audience. It was disappointing, and when I get the Volume 4 DVD, this is one episode that I'll be skipping more often than not.